Hello. Today we're going to look at the idea of photo skin retouching. Skin retouching is, I would say, somewhat misunderstood term. The idea mostly when it comes to skin retouching, it doesn't necessarily have to be for, beauty shots or glamour shots or magazine covers. It can be generally just a tool that can be used to make, color variations a little more even and to make skin a little smoother that will help out later when it comes to composites. So we're going to practice some basic skin retouching techniques, mostly on ourselves, and we might use some stock photos here or there. Usually when you find a stock photo of someone on a website like Pixabay, they've already had some skin retouching and some adjustments done. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. You can kind of see the before and after here. There's a few things here or there that I took out, like just in terms of just sort of splotches and blotches and color variation on the skin, but I tried not to take away too much of the shadows. So there's still shadows visible. There's still some variations in color here or there, because you want to make sure that you still have some features of the face, some sort of sculpted sort of features of the face here. So I'll close this out, and I'll go ahead and open up this guy here, drag him down to Photoshop, drag him in, and essentially what we need to do is start off by increasing the contrast. So I'm going to create this into a smart object, and I'm just going to do some basic photo adjustments here or there. So I'll go over here to my image. Let's actually duplicate this. I'm going to make sure I have a just sort of base image sort of chilling out here at the bottom, but I'm just going to copy this by making a smart object via copy, and I'll just go ahead and do some camera raw filter stuff. So I'll go here, camera raw filter, and obviously this is going to be individual for each photo that you encounter. So I'm just going to kind of click through just some basic stuff. Generally speaking, I will probably pull the exposure up slightly and the contrast up a good deal, because I want to make sure I can see the different things that are sort of being pointed out: highlights, shadows, up, down, clarity, dehaze, vibrance, saturation up a little bit here or there. I'm going to take down the yellows a good deal because I don't like this big yellow background here, so I'm going to take the yellow saturation down way down. And then I might also pull the luminance of the oranges down to some, the reds just for that. Okay, all right, so that's a good little start here. And so from there, I might actually, I'm not a big fan of how orange it looks, so I'm actually going to reduce the saturation of the oranges. All right, so this is, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with this, but I just want to kind of point out some basic things to start off with. Every time we do this, I'm going to do the same sort of Control-Alt-Shift-E just to copy everything into a single layer here. So if I just hold down the Alt key and click on the eyeball icon, I can kind of reduce, I can take everything else away. You can kind of see the before and after there. Okay, so with this done, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of leave it there. You could add any number of effects to it that you like, but mostly you want to increase the contrast, and you want to make sure that you are able to see everything. And I think I put a little too much of a spot on there, so I might kind of go back and see about that. But anyways, the idea at the end of the day is that you want to make sure the contrast is high. So what we'll do now is I'm going to call this one my base. And then I'm going to hold down Control and hit J on the keyboard to duplicate that layer. You can always right click and just find duplicate layer right there. Now the reason why we decided to do like new smart object via copy is because if we just duplicate that smart object, then they'll be linked together like all smart objects are. And so we don't want to have that happen. So I'm going to call this one color. And I'm going to call this one details. Okay, so I'm going to make this one invisible here. Now, every picture that you encounter is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to go over to Filter and find Blur, and I'm going to find my Gaussian blur. Now, when I say different, I mean you're going to want to decide how intense of a blur you're going to want. Now, if your picture is bigger than mine, you may want to have more of a blur. If it's smaller, like a cross, you might want to have a smaller blur. I'm choosing 5 because if I choose like 7, then it's going to be hard to maintain any level of clarity. If I choose like 3, we're not going to be able to blend the colors quite as well. So we want to have the colors because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a color variation. And what we'll do here is kind of blur this out. And then I'm going to see if I can't separate my details by going over here to my details and then finding Filter and looking under Other and finding my high pass filter, which is just going to like find all the sort of basically all the lines, you know, that are in there, all the details that are in there, and sort of reduce them to a very slight gray on gray kind of pattern here. So I'm going to change this from normal, my blending mode, to linear light. I would say any number of these things can achieve the same effect. Overlay, kind of soft light a little bit, but I think linear light's the best because it really hits like both the highlights and the shadows. And so you can kind of alt click here, you can kind of see the difference between the two. There's only a slight variation in terms of the intensity of some of the lines, some of the gray areas, and that's only because I'm wearing gray and I have gray in my hair. So it shouldn't be too big of a dramatic difference there. So essentially what we've done here is we've separated our lines from our colors by doing this high pass here. Okay, so now this is where it all starts. We need two tools. In particular, we need our eraser tool and we need our healing brush tool. The healing brush tool works a lot like the clone stamp tool does. Essentially all we're doing is we're holding on the Alt key to sample a section of skin, like, you know, texture here, and then we're using it to kind of just click and reduce like the difference between them. So I'm going to Alt click and then click again, just to, I want to avoid getting rid of the shadow entirely, but I am going to sort of click and kind of like do a couple of different like tiny little Alt click and kind of like just click around until I kind of get this variation sort of reduced here. All right, you can kind of see some of them kind of going away. I don't want to do too terribly long strokes. I just want to Alt click, get another reference, and then click again just to sort of paint over. So clicking over here, trying to smooth this little area out. All right. All we're doing is smoothing things out. And I'm going to do this for a second, and if it becomes unclear what I'm doing, hopefully when I do the little before and after, it'll become more clear. So I'll just go up here, click. Little bags under my eyes. No one likes those. Goodness me. Could pack a whole suitcase in these bags. All right. So hopefully we can turn Mr. Labello from this wrinkled shell, you know, scarred by disease and regret, and turn him into something a little more youthful, a little more presentable, a little less horrifying. So obviously, you know, when you look at yourself, you see things that others don't see. You see things that maybe you consider to be flaws that aren't. But we're not looking necessarily for flaws. We're looking more for variations in color. We're trying to smooth out the color. I'm not really paying attention to any particular thing in, you know, like freckles or scars or pockmarks or things like that. I'm mostly just looking for variations in color. So I'll just like this right here. So this little area, see if I can smooth this out some. Oh, email. Hello, come on in.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Okay, over the side here. Whoop, so it'll hit a light. I don't want that. Real subtle changes is the name of the game. Okay, put this little shine here. I like this purple. Okay, so we'll pause it there for a second, and I'm just gonna make this the only thing I can see, and you can kind of see this difference here in terms of like just the lines and the variations in color and how that sort of reduces, it sort of smooths everything out. Okay, so the last thing we'll do just to kind of like finish this up is just to kind of go around with the eraser brush. The eraser brush is going to be set down to like a very soft brush, no hardness, and a very low opacity, like 20% or so. And we're just going to go through and we're going to kind of click and kind of get rid of some of the more obvious sort of lines here. So I'm going to kind of smooth out these wrinkles up here. You can kind of see them sort of smoothing out a little bit. Just equals here. And just a little bit smoothing here or there. And once again, we can kind of look at the difference. Maybe a little more. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so that's the long and short of it. When you're done, I want you to make a photo spread kind of like this, where you have the before and the after. The before should be on the left, the after should be on the right, as all things are. Like I said, just make a visible sort of like difference in terms of the color variation among your face, but try not to get rid of all the shadows on your face, because the shadows on your face is what gives the shape the three-dimensional quality. All right, well, can't wait to see you guys produce. See you in class.